the trifecta of the superhero movies is now finally come full circle. After the first movie, Batman v Superman, was about two heroes fighting with a villain manipulating the entire scene. And after the second movie, Captain America: Civil War, was about two group of heroes fighting with a villain manipulating the entire scene. Yeah, we finally get a standard superhero movie where heroes versus villains. In this case, it's going to be Apocalypse, who's back from being in prison for underneath an Egyptian temple for thousands of years, and now wants to conquer the world, in viewing that the human race has become disillusioned. That he's become disillusioned with the direction of the human race, and this movie was alright. Like, I was surprised how mixed and negative it got, which is why I didn't see it in theaters, and just in case it was a bad movie, so I waited till it came out on Blu-ray. But I was surprised at how negative this movie was getting. Like, it was mixed to negative. So I wanted to know what this movie was, what was so wrong with this movie, and like I could see some things, like specifically Jennifer Lawrence's character Mystique, how she's more Jennifer Lawrence than Mystique, and at times Katniss. But I'll get to that in a minute. And the other complaint that I heard was the fact that, like, it takes place 10 years after the events of Days of Future Past, and none of the characters have aged. Well, probably by 3 years, but that's not really making much of a difference. Because it was 3 years after Days of Future Past came out, I believe, and now several years, and now nothing's really changed, and they all look the same. Like, you can make the argument Mystique, well, she could change herself at any time, so really that's not really much a complaint. But at the same time, it's like confusing how none of the characters changed in the last 10 years. It was like, oh, we gotta get Scott Summers, we gotta get all these other characters who would be born later on. We gotta get them involved and whatnot. So I think that's what was the plan for. And along with that, someone else can make the argument, oh, it's a comic book movie. It doesn't need to be grounded in realism. And yet the X-Men movies were based on realism because of its themes of racism and segregation and how people are, well, you know, how society is. But anyways, okay, like I've seen Apocalypse in multiple iterations of him throughout the years. Like, I never read comics and whatnot, but from what I've gathered, he's a big bad guy who has the Four Horsemen at his side, and it varies from comic to comic iteration they made. And I also believe that, well, we've seen him as a hulking giant beast of a man, and I was like, okay, this is actually different from Apocalypse. Like, he still acts the same, but ultimately he's shorter than he's actually the shortest among the Four Horsemen, which is weird. But this is also the same franchise that had Peter Dinklage as Professor Trask. So as Trask, so I can't complain about that because I don't really complain about that. Like, I want to see how good is Poe Dameron's acting, since Oscar Isaac plays Apocalypse. And also we got our Stanley cameo when the nukes launched. And Apocalypse was total devastation, and that bugged me a bit. But then when I found out that he wanted to have all mutants be the dominant force, then oh, okay, that makes sense. But like, it kind of did confuse me at times. I don't know why he didn't just use the nukes and wiped out civilization, since that was one of his motives, to wipe out all modern civilization and take over the world, where only the strong survive. And they could have done the nukes and let humanity somehow survive it. So, yeah. And they also have Jean Grey building up to do this Dark Phoenix stuff, and they hint at the Dark Phoenix saga probably happening in a sequel if they really go forward with it. And we also get our Wolverine cameo, and that was awesome. Which is why they should not have spoiled that in the trailer. And also, I did like how Charles Xavier fought Apocalypse inside the astral plane, where they fight physically but in a mental state, which was actually kind of awesome. And I was wondering, like, so wait, can Apocalypse really grow big, or is he just like can only do that in his mind? Like he has all the abilities of mutants over the decade, over how long he's been around. So it could. And let's talk about the guy who stole the movie, in my opinion, and that was Michael Fassbender as Magneto. Okay, this guy has only been happy for 3 scenes throughout 3 entire movies. I will not count the original X-Men trilogy because, well, he's always about evil plans. But in the beginning trilogy, as they like to call it, they went ahead and did this. Okay, let's have Magneto not be happy for at least 3 scenes in total. First Class, Days of Future Past, and, well, X-Men Apocalypse. So, like, he's happy at times with, like, after the whole events of Days of Future Past, he's on the run, and he has a family now who knows about his past, and he keeps that a secret from everybody else beside his family, since his wife knows about it, and looks like there's a very loving relationship. And when I heard that he had a family, I was like, oh, they're gonna die. Oh man, that's gonna suck badly. And of course, they die later on in the movie when Magneto saves some worker's life from being crushed by a giant machinery. Wow, that's the thanks you get. Like, I get why, because he tried to assassinate the president, but, like, certainly he could have changed somehow, probably. I like he still needs to answer for his crimes, but at least he's trying to change. And I did like the scene where he goes back to the factory after his family's dead, and how he's pretty much broken and he's gonna murder all the workers, and then he just says that my name is Magneto, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I feel sorry for you. Like, I get why they were worried, but I have to understand, like, I'm sorry for you that you lost everything again, and now you feel like you have nothing left to live for, so now you're just gonna continue where you left off here. If Apocalypse didn't happen, then he probably, well, none of this also would have happened for Magneto, but it's like he can't escape his past. He can't escape who he is. He can't escape this mutant domination theory he has, where you understand why, but you can't agree with it. But, and then also we get Stryker, and I was like, if you cut that out, you wouldn't have the Wolverine cameo, but ultimately, what was the point of that other than to pad out the running time? Like, Stryker didn't really do anything. He just walked up, took off his sunglasses, and looked cool. But then he escapes, and we don't know what happened to him afterwards. And he hasn't aged a day. It may be 3 years, but that's it. Also, they kill off Havoc, and there was also, and like, I did like the nuclear scene where Apocalypse gives this big speech about how there are no more of this, no more weapons, no more superpowers, how there are no thing that can strike God. And I was like, okay, that's the villain standout moment. Like, I've said this in both, I believe I've said this in Bane and the Joker from the Dark Knight trilogy, how they had a big standout moment to really highlight that these actors are great, and how to highlight this villain moment. Like, Joker had 2 scenes. He had the pencil magic trick, and the whole police interrogation scene with Batman. Those were two standout moments for the Joker, and a movie that had a lot of standout moments. Bane had a standout moment when he did Reckoning, when he did Gotham's Reckoning, as I like to call it, when he exposes the truth about what happened to Harvey Dent in Dark Knight and in Rises. And I said Liam Neeson, it was just a standard Liam Neeson performance when he was playing Ra's al Ghul. Like, I thought he was perfect for the role, but like I was thinking, but he didn't have that standout moment. And well, that usually is kind of a formula for you to have the standout moment for you to pay attention to him. And well, they gave it to him in this movie. They gave Apocalypse to this movie. They gave Oscar Isaac, okay, let's give you a standout moment. And also, he reminds me a little bit of Bray Wyatt to an extent with how he talks, like how he says that there are no more false gods, no more systems, no more superpowers and all that. And I'm thinking like, okay, that's something Bray Wyatt would say. And I know I'm comparing a superpower mutant to a wrestler persona, but seriously, like Bray Wyatt's character is so unique. Also, Havoc dies, aka Alex Summers. Yeah, he dies. Well, presumably, I think. Like, he was closest to the blast, so I'm just going to assume he dies. And we also get Nightcrawler, whose origins is still a mystery. Like, they're probably going to hint at later down the road if they make an X-Men movie about the relationship between Nightcrawler and Mystique. Like, they've done it in the comics and TV shows, so they could do it in the movies. And like they could have, like they gave Storm an introduction, but they didn't really give Cyclops and Angel big introductions to know who these characters are before they join them. They just join Apocalypse and Storm, and then later Magneto. Like, you already know who Magneto is. You have 2 movies explaining him. But this Angel and Cyclops, well, you don't know who these 2 are. If you've read the comics, then you would know who they are. But this is a movie which is completely different from the comics. Like, they borrow elements of those characters, but we don't know those characters. So they were just there for muscle, pretty much, to fill out the 4 Horsemen routine. And this movie was pretty much alright. Like, the reason, and if people ask him, wait, why didn't you talk about the other movies, the other X-Men movies? I'll do that later down the road, but I wanted to talk about X-Men Apocalypse to fill out the trifecta of the superhero movies. I ultimately did enjoy this movie. Like, I thought at least it deserved a 60% Rotten Tomato, not a 48%, as I was surprised it got. Like, I was thinking, like, okay, maybe Chris Stuckman really restored my confidence in this movie when he reviewed it, when he said that they were trying to take risks in this movie, how they were trying to build things up. Like, the first 20 to 30 minutes is what drags the movie a bit, but like, then it starts to get better and better and better as scenes go on after Magneto in the forest. And I was like, yeah, I kind of agree with him on that. Like, I get why some fans probably didn't like that and how they were building some stuff up. And I'm concerned what will happen next. Like, they already hint at the Dark Phoenix saga, but this might be the end of the X-Men series. But, like, they hint that this is going to be another one set in the 1990s. And I'm thinking, like, how do you top Apocalypse? Well, the only way to do that is the Dark Phoenix saga, which was adapted in the original X-Men film trilogy. That didn't really work out. And then you got a post-credits scene, Essex Corporation, which relates to the new Wolverine movie coming out soon called Logan. And it could have ties to Gambit if that ever gets released. And then Bryan Singer said he would be interested in having the villain Proteus in an X-Men film. So you have either the Dark Phoenix saga or Proteus having a huge role in the next X-Men movie. So it's going to be hard to choose I think, but Bryan Singer said he was going to be stepping away from the franchise, but could envision returning in at a later date in some capacity. So yeah, this is going to be yeah. Is the X-Men series going to go like what it did last time? Like there's going to have two great movies. Like I liked First Class, and a lot of people did too. But are they going to go back to like first they're going to build up the Dark Phoenix saga and then go back to square one with X-Men 3 pretty much? Like I'll talk about X-Men 3 later down the road, but that's a big concern. I hope they can do it right this time. But yeah, yeah, like 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 also my concern is with how big the devastation of the world is that got from X-Men Apocalypse. I'm wondering, like, wait, won't they justify the Sentinel program? Like, Trask getting murdered was a martyr, and then that made them get the Sentinel program. So what's stopping them from doing it now? Like, at the end of the X-Men movie, you see Sentinels moving about. So, like, okay, where did those Sentinels come from? Did they steal them from Washington after the events of Days of Future Past and took them back with them? Because I'm wondering, how could you have forgotten? Oh wait, didn't we have 4 mega robots up in the air? Where did they go? Like you would think that would have been the case, but no. So are they gonna go ahead and build that up? And especially after the whole thing, mutants and humans got further divided. Like they really need to address this if they do make a sequel. But if this was to be the end of the X-Men series, I would say, okay, like there's some loose ends need to be addressed in another movie if they do that. But like, it's hard to really top Apocalypse, the character, so they have to do Dark Phoenix or Fearless, or so. I don't know. Well, everyone, this was Neo Reality Entertainment. These were my thoughts on X-Men Apocalypse. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and donate. Stay tuned for more.